I'm Chrissy Moore, and this is how I got set free. So, I was married 24 years, and I was married to an abusive husband. He didn't abuse me physically, but he abused me emotionally and physically, as far as sexual abuse in the marriage. He was mentally abusive, and I was in a prison being married. It was a very difficult time for us as a family because we went through a lot of struggle. He downgraded us, he belittled us, he wasn't very encouraging to me or my kids. And at the end of our relationship, I found out that he winded up sexually abusing my daughter, and he broke up pretty much our whole entire family. When we finally had enough courage to go to the police and tell them our story, he winded up committing suicide. So when that happened, that kind of put my whole family in a huge mess. I was broken. I was afraid. I was angry, and most of all, I wore a mask to hide all those feelings. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my self-worth was, and my identity was so wrapped up in this person that I didn't even know who God was anymore. For the longest time after his death, I was angry at God because he allowed me to go through so much pain, so much emotional pain, so much mental pain, and a lot of sexual abuse that went on in my marriage. I didn't understand why God allowed it to happen to me. When I needed that help, I winded up finding out about a ministry called Set Free Ministries. And at the time, I remember that people had told me it was mainly about drug addictions and so forth. And I thought, I don't even know why I would go there because I'm not addicted to drugs. But when I got there, something happened, something was different. Set Free helped me to take off my mask. And I had to take off this mask of pain, take off this mask of anger, take off this mask of hate. And when I finally learned to do that, it allowed me to see who I really was, which was a broken mess. And in that brokenness, when I finally found out that I needed that help, was when I began to walk out this process. The process was very painful because I didn't want to accept the fact of how broken I was. I think nobody wants to admit how angry or how much they're hating other people because of the hurt that they went through. But I knew in my heart that something was missing and I wanted to be free. You know, for 24 years I lived in my prison, and I enjoyed my prison because that's all I knew. So when I got to Set Free, I was actually taught how to break out of your prison. And little by little, I had to take those bricks that I put on this wall because I hid behind a wall, and it helped me to move forward in my life. Again, the process was very messy, but now, where I'm at now, I'm in such a healthy place. This is 4 years later. I'm in a great position with my family. I'm in ministry. I am working with ministry. I did my first virtual symposium probably about 2 weeks ago, and I'm probably in the most healthiest place of my life right now. Set Free has helped me to find out who I was, who to trust, which is definitely God, to help me walk through the process. It helped me to realize that I needed to walk out the process because you can't do it alone, and you definitely can't hide from the process because if not, you're going to explode. And Set Free has allowed me to really believe that I do have a destiny, and I do have a destiny in God. My life did not end when my husband's life ended. My life just began. So, one, I had to admit that I was alone, and that was a hard thing to admit because I had been married for so long, and not realizing what our next step was going to be can be actually a very difficult time. So, acknowledging that I needed help with that fear was the first step. Now, sometimes you don't know what to do when you acknowledge that you need that help because you're not knowing how to walk out that process. For me, that's what happened at Set Free. I didn't know how to walk out that process. I didn't know how to address that thing. But going there and learning the steps to be able to confront that thing was a big, big breakthrough for me. It took me about probably 2 or 3 times going through the program to actually get to the place where I could say I was extremely healthy and walking in the things that God had me to do. The biggest thing for me, the biggest breakthrough that I had for me was realizing that I was walking around with a mask. And we all walk around with a mask, whether you're in church or whether you are in the world. You're going to have a mask because you don't want people to know how you really feel. And you mask that hurt, you mask that pain. So for me, realizing that I could actually take off that mask and get down to the nitty gritty, get down to the root problem of what was oppressing me. When you don't confront these things in your life, those things continue to keep you bound. And sometimes you don't even know what they are. Um, One of the things that I had to battle with was anger. And I didn't even realize how much anger and hate that I actually had. Not only did I hate God because of the situation that I had gone through, I hated men in general. And I didn't realize how much I hated men. One of the times I went to Set Free, I was literally sitting down and I had realized that I had so much hatred for men. And we had Pastor Paul's sister come and talk about the fact that in her own life, the reason she couldn't trust a man is because of all the hurt that men had given her. And to be able to trust God in that way, it was difficult for her because God was a male figure. For me, that was such a huge, profound moment because I could never connect with God on such a level because that person who was supposed to be my protector, which was my father, which was my husband, both failed me, and they were both men. So because these men failed me in my life, I could not trust a man who is actually God. And I remember that night thinking, if I could just get that connection to trust God and not put men in that place. And I remember that profound moment because my daughter and I were there that night and we had such a huge healing. I confronted that thing. Anything can be your thing. Fear can be your thing. Anger can be your thing. Hatred can be your thing. Abuse can be your thing. Control, manipulation can be your thing. Whatever your thing is something that you have to confront. Otherwise, you live in that dysfunction and not realize that you need help. So, since finishing out Set Free, God has actually positioned me in some really neat things. I am currently the grace leader at All Things Made New. I have had the wonderful opportunity of being on a virtual symposium, and I truly believe that if God has set me free, God can set you free.